Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back to Coffin Comic Con Online 2021. I have the wonderful pleasure of interviewing one of our artists, the amazing, the talented Sorah Suhng.
Hello,
Hi,
how are you?
how are you today?
I'm doing great. It's been a chill, relaxing, drizzly day here in Pennsylvania.
Oh, send us some of that rain our way. It's cold. We needed to rain and get us drenched because after 8 months, we're not going to get any more.
I know,
So
but
that would be a
how
blessing.
when you say cold, how cold is it?
At night, it's 46. We're desert rats, you know. So I was looking up on your website, and I was, trying to check out a lot of your history, and I see here you've done stuff for like uh, Valiant, Marvel, Image. What got you into this crazy industry, and what drove you to push yourself to get to the level you're at today?
Well, I actually started in comics. I was playing a video game way back in the day that was based off of superheroes, and I had read X-Men as a kid and some other Marvel books, and but I was playing a video game when I was in college called City of Heroes and City of Villains, and that was all based on superheroes and whatever. And it was a lot of fun. So I started to draw like my own characters for funsies. And then my friends asked me to draw their characters, and then strangers started to offer me money to draw their characters. And I was like, wow, this is cheap easy money. To be fair, at the time, my art was not great. And anyhow, so I kind of idly thought like, oh, I would love to actually be like a comic book artist. But I knew absolutely nothing. I was like 19 years old. I didn't know anything about comics, like in terms of the industry, because I had grown up overseas and we didn't really have this kind of culture, in Korea. I mean, we do now, but then we didn't. And so, anyhow, I was working at a Starbucks in between semesters at university, and I ended up I'm cliche. I was discovered at a coffee shop and
Hi.
by Bob Layton, and I became his apprentice, and he brought me on as an inker initially because my lines were too sketchy. And so he had to teach me how to be confident in my strokes and everything. And then it just, I learned the system through that. It was very old school. Like I had a legitimate mentor that I, physically went to work with him in the studio. And from there, I just ended up meeting people. I worked in the industry roughly for, I don't know, maybe 3 years at the time, maybe 4 years. And then I took a break, ran off, got married. That didn't work out. And then I came back to the business. And since about 2016 is when I started to really, try to go as a penciler. And everything's been going pretty great since. So, yeah.
Yeah, you've done amazing work, especially these exclusives that you did for us for this weekend. The Chaos Rules, Winter Solstice. I had a lot of customers just go crazy over it, especially with the armor you did for her. And then the Naughty Edition as well. These have been doing really well. I've seen a lot of people scooping them up. So I'm going to say probably by this weekend we'll have a sellout again. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And how is it so you got with Leighton, and I see with a lot of people that get into the industry, were you impressed that you had someone that had been established in the industry already, just kind of grab you almost out of obscurity at a coffee shop and say, hey, I want to take you under my wings and just let's do this?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't understand the privilege or the gravity of such an opportunity at the time. And like, I look back at my early 20s thinking, man, I wasted a lot of other opportunities because I just didn't, when you're young, you just really don't understand, the mechanics of like what's really happening and the opportunities presented to you. And so it was, I realized later that, wow, that was like such an amazing opportunity. But yeah, it was, you work for it, right? I wasn't just like sitting there getting like free lessons. I had to ink all his backgrounds and do a bunch of layouts. And I also built his website. So it was a lot of, actual hard work involved with it. But I do consider myself lucky because I know, things things are a lot more solo these days with artists, where they're, you know, almost completely self-taught, and you know, they end up getting to a certain level and then discovered. So I count myself very lucky.
Yeah, that's got to be incredible to just all of a sudden just be hanging out at a Starbucks and, hey, I want to bring you into this industry.
Yeah.
Were you hesitant or were you nervous about it at all?
No, actually, I mean, it's a really ridiculous story. So the very first day that I was working at that Starbucks, it was like my, I can't remember the word, but like, you know, the introduction, like first day, you just go there and you meet the manager and they talk you through everything, but you're not really working. So I was sitting down with the manager at the time, whose name I cannot remember, which is unfortunate because she really is the reason that I'm sitting here right now. She asked me, she's like, so what do you actually want to do with your life? Because at the time, nobody really aspired to be a barista. And so I said, well, I'd like to be a comic book artist. I mean, whatever. I knew nothing of what that entailed. And she's like, oh, that's interesting. And then some guy walks in and he's clearly a regular. And he ends up saying hi to everybody. And she introduces me and, oh, this is Bob and blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, hi, hello. And I'm like, okay, I guess he'll be a regular here. And then as soon as he got his coffee and as soon as he left, she turns around and she goes, yeah, he's like some famous comic book artist or something. And I was like, what? So like, she was like, yeah, I can like set you guys up to talk or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll mention it or something when I see him. So it took me like 2 months to like get the balls basically to talk to him. And even then it wasn't me. It was literally the manager got sick of me waiting around. And so she told him one day when I was not there that I wanted to be a comic book artist. The next time that he was in line and he talked to me, he's like, so I heard you want to be a comic book artist. And I was like, you know, shell shock. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, yes. And then he's like, cool, I can like look at your portfolio if you want to. He's like, why don't you meet me here tomorrow at blah time? And I was like, okay. So, and again, I mean, I didn't know who he was until, you know, I had to Google him after that first day to like figure out who the hell he was. Cause I didn't know anybody's names beyond like, I think like 3 people. It was bad. I loved reading the books. I never paid attention who was doing them. I was a bad fan. Yeah, so the next day he like sat me down for an hour. He went over with my little Palsley, you know, or my paltry portfolio, and he saw something and he like blew my mind. He like showed me a few things with lighting or whatever. And I was like, what? And so, yeah, so I actually didn't end up, like I said, it wasn't really me. It was my manager who made this whole thing happen. His name, I can't remember. I'm a horrible person.
That's okay. They'll remember you, and that's the important thing.
Yeah. I guess.
Speaking of the variant, how do you go about when you're presented to do exclusives? What's the process to make the exclusives that you do for us? What is your process in thought, or what direction do you receive, and how do you go about to just hone in on that and make it pop like the way you do?
Well, thank you, firstly. Well, Brian is very giving as, you know, as a, I guess in this case, he'd be acting as the art director, right? So like as an art director, he's very, very giving and very flexible. So he'll have like, general themes or vibes he's going for, and he'll just write it out, you know, very simply, but it's more like a guideline versus then he doesn't say like, I want exactly this. Although on occasion he has to because it's story contextual or whatever. But generally speaking, I mean, he really kind of lets us, I mean, all the other artists that I've talked to who work for Coffin, he lets us have fun with it. You know, we can come up with ideas on our own and kind of pitch it to him. And then if he likes it, he'll be okay. You know, he'll say, okay, go run with it. But, yeah, it's pretty chill, actually. I mean, sometimes I'm not having good days and I have to end up sending him like 8 or 9 layouts because he's like, no, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. But then he'll land on the one. I'm like, okay, good. And I can completely focus. But, it's, you know, we were doing like a whole series of like seasonal stuff. And so for the winter, I had the idea of I was like, what if I did like these massive like iceberg skull things? And then I had her in like icy armor. And in my head, I was thinking very Viking, you know, hence like the big braids in her hair and the big braid down her back. And so, and then it's funny because, you know, people say, oh, you're great at composition and blah. And for me, it's just like, does it look cool? That's kind of where I go with it. I'm like, does it look badass though? Okay, I will do that because Lady Death is badass. So you have to make sure that everything about her is like, not necessarily over the top, but is like, you know, just a little extra because she is an extra person. I mean, she's an extra character.
Now, when you first when you ask you to do the variants of exclusives like you did with this, is it a different thought process, or do you just like, okay, let me try to make it this softer?
I try to give as much variation as possible, like, not just in the tone, but also the environment. And I want to change things. I've done patches. I have done patches before where it's just like a simple costume change, but I really enjoy like taking that pose and really working it into a completely different, like, how can I vary it? How can I make it totally different that it's worthwhile for the fans to then get both kind of thing versus just like, oh, I like that one better. I want to give something completely different in the second version of it.
And so it definitely shows.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this one reminded me, like, in my head, I remember thinking of just like, those like, oh, you think about like the movies in the 80s or the 90s of like those Russian models where they have like,
yes,
yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
I know.
That's what I was looking for on that one with like the big fur coat.
This one piece right here, the naughty edition, it really, I really like how it was just, it has the chill and just the softness and it's like delicate, but still she has that, badassery about her. And that's one thing I really liked about this variant you did for it. It's just gorgeous.
Thank you.
Is there other things that you, when Brian says, okay, just go for it, is that intimidating for you, or do you prefer to have the guidelines to kind of get you focused on possibly the direction he wants to go?
I think it just really depends on the context and which character that I'm working on. I was working on a cover. I can't say which character it is, but I was working on a cover with Brian, and I just wasn't really nailing, the kind of guideline that he had. And so, I said, I kind of had this other idea. How do you feel if I did this? And he was like, done, do it. And I was like, okay, good. So like, I try to work, within his guidelines as much as possible, but sometimes my brain just is not communicating with his brain in a great way. Sometimes it's hard for me to like, what is he really looking for? So, but again, that's what the whole layout process is for. He ends up, guiding you in that way. So
now, speaking of that guiding, we released the Crimson set you did, the Hell Witch and the Richard Ortiz piece.
Yes.
How was it that you were, what was it like to be like, oh, because that's a really popular image he did. It's like,
yeah,
beautiful. I've had a lot of people ask me about if I can find copies. I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's my favorite. It's my absolute favorite Lady Death piece, and it's one of my favorite pieces from Richard Ortiz, to be like, just flat out, because it's one, Richard is really good at drawing butts. Like his butt just really good booties. And so when Brian was like, hey, I want to do this, I was like, oh, I mean, that I felt like genuinely I felt honored, because I was like, oh my God, that's like my favorite thing. It's like if you're asked to do an homage to, I mean, the classic, like asked to do like a Jim Lee homage, you're like, oh yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
I'll up against that. I mean, it's a little intimidating because, Richard is so prolific and ubiquitous, especially with Coffin. And so, I was and I didn't want to do like I didn't want to do an exact, like absolutely the same kind of thing. It's definitely an homage where it's like, I did change, some of the anatomy and the angle of the head or whatever. Cause, a lot of times you see homages and it can sometimes be a little Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to do that at all. So I was like trying to like still make it still clearly that it's the Richard pose that he constructed, but with a twist or whatever. So yeah, it was fun. It was super fun. That was like one of my most fun projects that I did.
Well, it showed, because that set just flew out. Yes, it was insane. I was answering all the messages on Kickstarter and doing the add-ons, and people just ate it up. They were really loving that set. So congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations to you guys.
Oh, thank you. It's been a wild ride, that's for sure. Now that you've been established, your name's getting out there, you're growing as an artist, you're getting out there. Is there other types of art styles you've ever thought of, maybe I want to try this type of style, or painting, or just, maybe even sculpting? Is there other things that has just stimulated you as a creator to want to branch out into other types of art?
Well, I mean, I really enjoy the traditionalness in comics of drawing with a pencil and then inking. I tend to try to ink with a crow quill versus like, micro pens or whatever. But these days for speed purposes, I will do a micro pen. But really, I mean, I also enjoy writing a lot. So it's like I have like a Wacom tablet, like this $2,500 tablet that I have barely used because I'm like, I'm going to teach myself to digitally color, and I just don't like. There's so many people who are already so much better than me in coloring like that. And that's all that they do. That is their focus. And so, maybe down the line, I'll expand my skill set there. I can color traditionally with Copics and whatnot, but coloring with digitally is like, that is a painterly skill set that I have yet to achieve. It would be nice one day to do it, but I tend to get the rest of my like creativity up beyond drawing and writing. So, and I have my own projects. We don't have to talk about them here. This is for Coffin, but so writing is really like my other outlet beyond just drawing.
Nice. Now, how do you feel, and what are your thoughts on the Sworn and the Fiends, the Coffin Comics dedicated fan base that just gets bigger?
I know. No, they're like the absolute best. They're some of the nicest fans I've ever met. And which is, it's kind of like, I was just talking to a friend about this, about the fact that, metalheads, in the music world, that metalheads are some of the nicest people that you meet. And I think it's because they get their like rage, their frustrations out through the music. It's very cathartic. And I think Lady Death has that, and Coffin as a whole has that vibe with the fans, with the Fiends, because like they get like a lot of their like, what's the word I'm looking for? They get a certain need fulfilled through the reading and through the collecting. And so again, they're incredibly nice, incredibly kind, insanely supportive. I'm always floored with how supportive the Fiends are. Like, I mean, it is rabid, and they've been very welcoming to me as a new artist coming into their little playground, and it's been absolutely fantastic. The Fiends are like the best fans.
Are you on the Sworn Nation?
I am, yeah, and I do post more than I post though. So yeah, it's fun. That's a fun group for sure.
Agreed. I mostly come from the retail side of the comic business for 25 years, and I always had the Fiends come into my shops over the years, and I've just never seen a fan base this dedicated. And not only that, they like to help people finish their collections. It's like the most amazing thing.
Yeah, like they trade stuff all the time. It's really wholesome, right? But again, I mean, if you look at the aesthetic of Coffin and Lady Death, it's all like darkety and badass and whatever, and then everyone's like a cream puff, and it's so awesome.
They are cuddly teddy bears. I actually, one person that reminds me of Teddy Bear is Miguel. When I first saw, I was like, he reminds me of a big teddy bear, But it's like that with a lot of our fans. They are. You look at it, it's like, oh, they must be intimidating, and they're the nicest group of people you will ever meet, hang out with, and they're really a great community to one another. And I like that they are accepting of all the new artists like yourself that join us, and they just really embrace everyone. It's a wonderful feeling.
It is. You guys at Coffin and Brian and Fran, like, you have really maintained this level of like, we're all just here to have fun. Let's keep everything fun. And I mean, it's paid off. Like I said, you guys, I mean, are the incredible success that you are having. And like, good Lord, I just looked at the Kickstarter this morning. I was like, whoo,
amen, sister. That's been nuts.
I don't know what you guys are at right this second, but I think this morning it was at 377. And I was like, that might even been last night. And I was just like, oh my God, like that is squad goals right there.
Yeah, I've only been here for a couple years now, and it's just when you think it's like, oh, we've hit it, and it's just like it keeps going and going, and the fans, I think it's the fans that help grow it, because they're out there talking to each other, to letting people know about it, and they're just so accepting that I think that's why we're successful, is our fan base.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys' customer service is also like perfection. So the speed is really good in terms of fulfillment, and your customer service is like better than anything that I've ever seen. including myself. I mean, it's just me and my manager, Brett. So it's like the little two of us are desperately trying to like, answer everything and track everything. You guys are like a well-oiled machine of just like quality control. So it's really awesome.
Well, thank you. I know Moonshine Mel does an amazing job. Her and I share the same office, and she is just really dedicated to getting everyone taken care of, helping them the best they can. And, a round of applause to everyone that helps out in the customer service. They really done an amazing job.
Yeah.
And have you ever seen a community like ours? I've been in the industry for years, and I've never seen anything like this.
No, I've never done. I mean, even in other mediums, like I'm a really big fan of this book series and TV show called Outlander, and I decided to join a few years ago. I decided to join their, a couple of fan groups online. Oh, it's so toxic. It was like, I was like, you guys are horrible, like so mean to everything and everybody, so judgmental. And I quickly left. So no, I have never seen any kind of community like this where it's just, like I said, it's kind of hilariously wholesome when you think about the actual, like the way it all comes off. It's like, it's so wholesome. We're all dark, but wholesome.
There you go. There's our next catchphrase, dark, but wholesome. Oh my God, that's awesome. I love that. I'll have to use that. Now, you with other things that are coming down the pipeline.
Yes.
With your work with Coffin.
Yes.
What is it that really just gets you pumped when they're like, hey, we got this idea. Are you in?
Well, like I said, I mean, usually when Brian comes to me with, we've been having kind of a scheduled work relatively for the last year, which has been an absolute treat. It's been a lot of fun. But like when he comes to me something outside of that schedule, then, he'll just kind of pitch me, I want it for this. And like he just recently did this. He changed one of the covers that was originally scheduled. I can't be specific. I'm sure you actually know what it is, but I can't talk about it. And so, but he was like, I had this idea, I'm gonna do this. And it was a little intimidating because, as my fans will attest, it's a lot of lace. But I had to just embrace that I was gonna be doing a lot of lace on these pieces. And but he usually comes with me with some kind of an exciting idea that's like, oh, this is hush hush. Like, we got to do it like this. I mean, even the Ortiz cover was like that. He was like, don't tell anybody, but I want you to do this thing. So that's why I think I did another interview where he just kind of was like, yeah, we're doing this. And I was like, oh, he just like let it out. Okay. Like I'm never aware of when he releases things.
Neither are we. Everyone's like, oh, you guys are. It's like, no, Brian even surprised us. He'll just come in. He's like, hey, I got this new piece. And he'll just go, whoo, whoo, okay. And it's like, really? And then he'll pull it out. It's like, check this out, and we're all like, oh God, but it's like, he surprises us. We sometimes don't even know what he's going to do or surprises. He just, boop. It's like, I've never worked for a company like that.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to be, working for him, working for Coffin as a whole, but working with Brian has been, it's been a total pleasure. And it's really set the tone because, like I said, I have my own projects and I work with, different art. I have to manage different artists and colorists and things. And I really try to learn from his methods, like his methods of communication, his methods of running a business, his methods of interacting with fans. I mean, he's so, the fiends are so wholesome because, again, right away, Brian's like darkly wholesome. And so everybody just like, it's that whole thing. It comes from the top down, right? If he's like super, but if he's super just like, positive and, excited about everything, that kind of energy translates to people who want to be part of that experience and part of the Coffin Comics family. So it's, kudos to Brian and Fran. So
yeah, this is a very wonderful company to work with. We always have fun. The environment's fun. We're all supportive. And I think that's why we reflect that with our fans.
Yeah.
Speaking of fans, hey guys, do you guys have any questions? Come on. Let's ask some questions. Here's your chance to ask Sorah Suhng a question. Let's do this. Now, here's the next thing I have for you. Is there ever anything that ended up getting published and you weren't happy with, but you were really shocked by the people are just like, it's perfect? Is that like something you battle with as a artist, a creator?
Well, yes. That is a definite yes. Actually, hilariously, with the covers that we're promoting right now, the Winter Solstice pieces, it wasn't quite in my head what I had wanted to accomplish. I liked it and it's fine, it's fun, but like I was like, as an artist, what you see in your head is not always what you're able to execute on the paper. And, my first mentor, Bob, he told me, he was like, your head's always going to be 1-2 steps ahead of your actual ability. And so what's been great is I've been doing all these covers with Coffin, and that's allowed me to continuously keep working on, finessing how I want to really depict, her body language, her face or whatever. So it's been a great learning experience, but that was like I said, that one I wanted to make it even more epic. Like in my head, it was much more epic. So I was like, okay, it's fine. It is what it is. But yeah.
Is there something that sometimes you'll see when Brian comes up with an idea? Is it definitely sounds like he gives you the room to be as creative and expressive as you want on the art. Is there ever something where you're like, you know what? I got to do this. Just hear me out. This is what I want to do.
No, I've never put my foot down with Brian or anything. No.
Well, almost not like a foot down, but more like, hey, I got this radical idea that's an expansion of yours. Will you allow me to try this out?
Well, I mean, I do ask him, and there's been a few covers where it's like, how about we, how's this idea? Because sometimes his guidance will be relatively, like I said, it'll be like, oh, I want her in X kind of outfit and blah, and that's it. So it's like, at that point, I really have to think, okay, what would work, what could work, and then I run that by him. I don't necessarily draw it all out. I'll just do a simple figure layout, but I'll tell him, in the actual text, like, this is what I'm thinking, blah, 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 blah. And then he'll be like, yeah, go for it. So, but back to the OG style of questions, like, no, I've never, passively made demands. I've never done that. No, I couldn't. He's the absolute, artistic master. He's got the eye for it. So he knows the fiends better than anybody else. So I'm going to trust his what he decides to do, and he just go this way, I will go that way. So
now, working with Coffin, with all these amazing things you've been creating for us, how do we compare to some of the other publishers you work with? Are we like, because we definitely are like, hey, we're the bad boys of comics.
Yes.
And I think people sometimes are intimidated by it, but once they get to know us, they just are so embracing of everyone. And I don't know what it's like. I've worked for other companies that were fighting with publishers, but it's never been anything like this. And as an artist, what's that like to come into something like that?
It's very refreshing, and it's a great, like I said, for me with my other projects and things, I try to really learn from Brian and Coffin's methodology. So, it's, one of the things that you hear, especially with like indie publishers, like they're not always going to be on time with paying, and it's a risk and blah, 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 Coffin's not that way. And I try to run myself that way. So like when I'm working, if I'm working with the colors, whatever, I do the Coffin method. As soon as it's done, or they invoice me, boom, it's paid. So like, I don't make people wait around. I mean, as a, somebody work for hire on Coffin side, it's like that is really appreciated, because nothing is worse than doing a bunch of hard work and having to chase down somebody to get paid for it, Mm-hmm. So especially when you're like, you should be doing this. Like, this is part of your business model, like run more efficiently. Like Coffin, like I said, you guys are a well-oiled machine. It just happens, like seamlessly seems to happen.
Well, thank you.
You asked.
Hey, no, it's always interesting, because it's like being put from the retailer side and then jumping into this. Why is it that I wasn't here earlier? Yeah. That's what I always was like. This is the best place I've ever had to work, and I've met so many wonderful people and artists, especially the fans.
Yeah.
Now, is there ever an image you did for us? You're like, that is my favorite piece I've done for comics. What is your favorite Coffin Comics piece?
There's a few pieces that have not been released yet that kind of sort of fit in that category, so I can't talk about it.
I've
been doing so many covers. So like I said, you can actually see like the first cover that I did of this like year-long, scheduling. The first cover, okay, that's, there's that, but like he's sitting on quite a quite a few of them. And as I continued doing them, once or twice a month or whatever, things were just getting better and better and better. So there's one that I can't remember. Kate colored it in such a way that it was like, oh, she's gonna kill me. There's a metal band that has a certain color aesthetic that's very like cold blue, but then it has like this kind of warmer blackish brown color, and that's like the only two colors that this metal band functions in. And she colored this because she's a metalhead, and so she colored this cover that has yet to be released. Sorry guys, I'm talking about this, you can't see it. She colored it in that way, so it's really dark, really gothy, and I was like, oh, that's really hitting the note there. So that's probably currently something that I've done that I absolutely just like. I can't wait for it to be released, and I hope that everybody likes it as much as I do. So.
I can't wait to see it. I'm really excited. I can't wait to see this. Is there anything that is there any questions out there, folks? Feed them my way. Let's do it. Who questions we got, Jimmy? Let's see. Oh, besides Bob Layton, have you inked anyone else that is well known in the comic industry?
Well, I wasn't inking Bob. I mean, I was inking alongside Bob because I was his art assistant. But I've inked Ron Lim, which was a joy to ink because he is so expressive in his artwork. And so, it's almost cartoony in a way, but I absolutely loved, and when you're inking, it's really cool because you end up picking up, like you end up seeing a lot of different artists. And so you end up getting to pick up different tricks that they do, how exactly they do like atmospheric haze and mountains in the background. Because you're inking it, you kind of just absorb how they pulled that off. So you're not sitting there like killing yourself, because everything's about efficiency in comics, right? Yeah. Speed and efficiency. Bernard Chang is another artist I got to ink over, which was a lot of fun. And he's a friend of mine. And I also got to ink over Sean Chen. And that Bernard Chang was for Iron Man The End. And then Sean Chen was for a Valiant book, whose name escapes me right now, something Lydia or whatever. And no, I mean, those are like I think those are the big ones that I can say. Yeah, I think
so. Let's see. Team Lady Death or Hell Witch?
Lady Death.
Oh, we got to vote for Lady Death.
I love Hell Witch, don't get me wrong, but Lady Death will forever have like a place in my heart, just period, just the end. So
we know where your vote's going to go for the fight.
Yeah.
All right, we got one vote for Lady Death right now.
Hey, I'm going to just scream this out. Sorah has already done her Hell Witch versus Lady Death cover. Now, she can't say what the subject is, but in very vague terms, what can she say about it?
Did you hear Brian?
Yes. Oh. This is what I was referencing earlier by saying it's a lot of lace.
Oh,
I can say that it is. I think it might be the most lace work I've done on a single piece. So I don't know what else can I say, but I have no idea. It was fun. I mean,
she's been so vague on it, but I'm like, I can't wait to see what this is going to look like.
When people see it, it's such a major story point, we can't even say anything about it.
Yeah, like I literally can't. I mean, it's like, sworn to secrecy.
Here's another question I have for you. Were you intimidated by all of us when you first met us?
Well, okay, so I think I told this story last time I was on here, but the first time that I like met Brian, everyone was setting up at Emerald City Comic Con, and I was so nervous because I actually have like pretty severe social anxiety, especially if somebody I admire, kind of a thing. So I went up to, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go say hi, I'm gonna introduce myself and be a big girl. And so I went over to the booth where him and Fran were, and like I was like, hi Brian, and I like went in for a handshake, he went in for the hug, and it was just like this weird like jamming out. And I was like totally I felt horrified. And I was like, okay, bye. And I like ran off. So in general, like when I really love somebody's work or just admire them, I tend to be really, really nervous. I am an outgoing person, but I do get nerves. So I was but with that said, it's like, I relaxed. And then, I remember one time we were at Salt Lake and Brett and I were able to go out to dinner Brian and Fran, and that was, such a treat. And I still, I was able to relax more because I tend to get tongue tied. Like, it's really ridiculous. Like the first time that I met, who was it? The first time I ever met Mark Silvestri, I like literally shook his hand and didn't say a word. I was like,
well, he's such a tall man. It's like, oh my goodness.
I know. I was wearing like 4-inch heels too, and I was still like breaking my neck. So yeah.
Yes.
But like I'm pretty short. But yeah. So the first time I met him, I literally did not say a word. So that was, that's like my MO, I think, where I just get completely like starstruck. So
you still, even though you're in the industry, you still have your
oh yeah, I nerd out. Yeah,
nice.
I definitely nerd out. It's pretty bad. I'm trying to think. There was somebody relatively recently. I can't think of him though. I'll think of it after we're done with the interview. I'm like, oh yeah. But yeah, I do. Oh, I did get to go to dinner with Stan Lee a couple of years before he passed in Orlando, and I was pretty starstruck with that. And although I had technically already met him once before, but it was years ago at a Joe Quesada, art show or whatever. And I'm sure he didn't remember me. Like, why would he? But it was a really great evening. And fortunately, he was, a natural entertainer. So like, I was not expected to be, a functioning human being. I just had to sit there and listen to all the wonderful stories he had. And I enjoy that as somebody with anxiety. It's like if somebody, you just wind them up and let them go, then you're just like, yes, continue. So it was fun.
Is there any other questions we got there from the Fiend Nation? Come on, guys. Come on. There's your chance. Here's your chance to ask a question to a great artist, Sorah Suhng. Come on.
Somebody asked what server. There it is. Yeah, that's the one.
Hey.
I played on Virtue. I was a role player.
Really?
Yeah. I spent way too many hours in college. Like, when they released City of Villains, my villain group was the first villain group to hit 50 because we power leveled ourselves all weekend. We had like a whole scheduled, like, you go to sleep and then we'll like double keyboard this, and it was insanity. Oh, to be 19 again.
I remember when that game came out, they had some of the comic tie-ins, and it was nuts.
It was a lot of fun. It was a very fun game. So
I remember a lot of people were asking, is it going to beat World of Warcraft? It's like, well, we'll find out.
Well, yeah. Then I think NC Soft ended up buying the company, and they ran it, or buying the game, and then they ran it, and then like they just canceled it out of nowhere. So there's been a lot of drama with that game recently too, because like there was like a secret server and people found out about it, like because other games that you've been able to have memorial servers almost after a game's off or whatever. They didn't allow that for City of Heroes or Villains, and so yeah, so there's a lot of drama with that. But yeah, so there's my answer. There's my nerdy game answer. Way too many hours spent on that game.
Oh, here you go. Hey, so what is your biggest pet peeve as an artist, and why? Good question, Eric.
I obviously I love working with, a variety of writers, but my biggest pet peeve is when a writer basically, there's two things here. One is when they over explain something and they give me a lot of superfluous information that I really don't need. Like, I literally do not need it. And so you have to kind of go in with a highlighter and like figure out like what are the key components that I actually have to do here, because some writers will give you like a whole page of description for a single panel and you're like, do I need
wow. I was expecting that to be like a splash page or a cover, but that's just for a panel.
Yeah. And so that's, as an artist, that really frustrates me. I actually, I work with, newbie writers. And I tell them, listen, I'm going to tell you everything that I know about writing in comics. But I'm going to also tell you all the little tricks to not anger your artists and make sure they want to work with you again. So, because that's really frustrating. The other thing is, I can't even remember what the other one was. Hold on. There was the over description, and yeah, I don't remember. That's the one I'm fixated on, is the over description. It's like, I don't need all that information. Because you think about artists, it takes us a lot longer to execute something than it does for somebody to come up and think of it, right? So we need like a full month, to really properly do a single issue book. And so when you're having to take, every second counts, when you're having to take all this time to like figure out what you're doing, then you know, you just wasted that adds up. You wasted X amount of hours just digging through the texts. You know, there needs to be writers there has to be good writers are very efficient is my point. They say this is what you need to know. I know you don't need to know anything else. And they give references. Oh, when a writer includes like image references with the script, I'm like, oh, yes, because that saves me time. I don't have to guess what you want. You're just like showing me what you like. I need this machine in the background. Cool, I can do that. So that's like, that's wonderful. I love that. Good job, writers.
So it does sounds like you definitely like creators that at least give you some direction, but the freedom to really, you know, say, hey, give me some guidance so I know what you really want. Don't give me text. Throw out an image at me.
Yeah. Well, because sometimes it's like there was a script. I'm going to try to be as vague as possible as to not, you know, shame anybody. But there was a script that I had to work on way back in the day that there was like, okay, A character can't be sitting next to B character, which is all the information I need to know. But then I was given like way too many paragraphs explaining why B and A character cannot be standing near each other. I'm like, I don't need to know that. I just need to know, just don't put this character next to that character. That's it. So, because, you know, eventually I will read the actual book or whatever. So it's like, I will get information when it's all put together and necessary. But I mean, maybe that's just me. I don't know how other artists feel about that, but I'm picky.
Jay Taylor. Who were your artistic influences?
Michael Turner for sure. That's because when I was playing City of Heroes, Top Cow was the publisher for the comic book, and so I ended up to because I was a broke ass college student, so to read it for free, I'd have to go to the website, and I'd never really explored you know, indie comics that much. I was mostly reading Marvel. And I remember just running you know, I would read the comic for City of Heroes, and then I just kind of explored the Top Cow website, and I really just fell in love with Turner's aesthetic and thusly, you know, Silvestri's aesthetic, because, you know, they were very, you know, that was his mentor. And yeah, so Michael Turner, like he's like one of the biggest ones. It's funny, when I first started out, people said, oh, you draw a lot like Turner, and I never saw it. Even my manager Brett, I still sometimes get those comments at cons, and I still don't see it. Like, and Brett's like, yeah, I don't see it at all, because Brett's a huge Michael Turner fan as well. I mean, he used to, you know, did a lot of helping out with Aspen and stuff. But so I would say predominantly Turner, and then Silvestri, obviously, like Jim Lee. Jim Lee is more. He's more like, in my head, Jim Lee is the absolute classic comic book aesthetic. It's like it is the foundation of it. That's in my head. It is, because you know, I'm a child of the '90s. What are you gonna do?
Well, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for answering the questions. And we're definitely looking forward to that special cover you can't tell us about.
Yes, I'm excited too. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Stay strong and have a good one.
Bye.